Mike Reiss covers the Patriots, ESPN NFL Nation reporter. How's morale? How would you sum it up?
Dan, great to be with you this morning. I think there's two parts to this. There's the short-term morale, which is they acknowledge they got their butt kicked in the Super Bowl. Will Campbell was asked what it was like to review the film of the game, and he said, terrible. He said they didn't deserve to win based on the way they played offensively. So that's the short-term morale. I think Mike Vrabel did a really good job, as he did all year, in terms of messaging with the team about the big picture morale. And he kept citing the number 307. And he was saying, this is the 307th day of our program. It's his first year as the head coach. No one thought they were going to be here. So I think he was able to zoom out with the players and sort of allow them to see that they had a great season, just a very disappointing end to that great season.
Okay, but let's take it into next season with Will Campbell.
Yep.
Is he going to need surgery? And was that really preventing him from getting any kind of stance to hold up to the Seattle defense? And then Drake May with his shoulder going into next season.
So let's start with Will on the surgery. I don't know the answer to that question, Dan, but my hunch would be no, just because he had an MCL injury November 23rd at Cincinnati. He went on injured reserve. He missed, I believe it was 4 or 5 games before coming back. And he said that was no excuse for his performance. And so I'll follow up on that to see if any surgery is required. But my sense is no coming out of that. And Drake, I know for sure, because I asked him that question yesterday, with the right throwing shoulder, does he anticipate that it would need any surgery? He said no, just rest for that.
You look at his regular season, and I said I would have given him the MVP because I didn't think the Patriots were going to score 20 points in the Super Bowl. I mean, I had them losing by double digits. He did a lot for them during the regular season. And obviously, Vrabel, that defense was wonderful. But we saw a different Drake May in the postseason. And I don't know what you attribute that to, because he was obviously under duress, a lot of turnovers there, and really wasn't very threatening, even though he came up with the most passing yards in one quarter in the history of the Super Bowl.
So, and that, isn't that great example of how stats can be misleading? Because in the fourth quarter, I think I counted 31 dropbacks, and they were down 19-0. So, if I'm getting that right, Dan, I think start with what Drake said yesterday. He acknowledged that he did not play as well down the stretch as he wanted to, and he said he's committed to make the promise that he's going to work hard to try to get back there and to right that wrong, if you will. So that's the first thing with Drake. I think who they played has to be part of this conversation. Yeah. Those were 4, if we're talking about the playoffs, 4 of the best defenses in the NFL. So I think that is part of it in this conversation about his play tailing off in the postseason.
You go with a last place schedule to now a first place schedule, and nobody's going to say they backed into the Super Bowl or the playoffs next year. What do you make of what's ahead?
It's exactly what Drake said yesterday. He said that everyone's going to be coming after them next year, so they have to have the mindset that they haven't arrived, that there's more work to do to maintain their standing. Dan, they're going to have probably 6 primetime games, and they're going to have, with the 17 games, and they're going to have 1 more road game than home game. And let's be honest, some people talked about the schedule they had this year and some of the breaks they caught as if it was like a demerit to the team. I think 2 things can be true. They did have an easier schedule this year. They still went 9-0 on the road. That's not easy to do. So I think 2 things at the same time can be true, but it's not going to be like that next year the way it looks right now.
Talking to Mike Reiss, he works for the Mothership, the NFL Nation reporter covering the Patriots. How much damage did Brady do last week?
In terms of him saying he didn't have a dog in the fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was more with some of his former teammates. I think that hurt some of his former teammates to hear him say that, because there's also a statue, Dan, out here outside. I'm not far from it. I'm down here at the stadium right now. If I walked outside and went about 200 yards away, I'd see a big statue of him. And so I think maybe it just chipped away a little bit at some of the
But why not take a stand? Who cares?
For Tom, I'm thinking
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
maybe because he feels like as a broadcaster that just called
He's
to see, you
not
know what I mean?
partial. He's
I
not
know.
impartial. He's not covering the game. That's why I'm just like, just say, hey, I'm always going to be rooting for Mr. Kraft and the Patriots. And you know, I'm going to hire their offensive coordinator. I'm rooting for him as well. Nobody would have cared until he made us care about this.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think he tried to clean it up. It was probably a little late, right, Dan, on the Instagram story when he said, to Robert Kraft, go get the seventh ring so we can both have seven. But at that point, it had sort of spread, right? I will say this, with the present team, there was one player, Robert Spillane, the linebacker, who said it
Yeah.
made him sick to hear that. But honestly, Dan, they've done a good job sort of separating and saying this is a new era. Like, we have respect for the old era, but they're not really clinging on to what they did in the past.
Oh man, that was. I mean, it was a gift for us during the Super Bowl week because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about leading up to this game. So I do thank Tom for providing that. Mike, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Dan, thanks for having me.
That's Mike Reiss of the Mothership covering the Patriots.